Hello all, welcome back to Consciousness Rising, and I thought I'd take a bit of a break from the book reading. As any of you that watch regularly will be aware that I've been doing a book reading of Jeremy Locke's The End of All Evil, and that's not a very big book, by the way. So it won't take me long to finish that. But as I said, each chapter is going to be a video, self-contained, because they're not that long. There's 9 chapters to that book. So yeah, we're getting there with that. I hope you're enjoying it. But I really had an itch today to go back to EFT, and any of you that watch my channel regularly, will know that the sort of 2 areas that I'm really into is truth and EFT, the healing modality called emotional freedom technique. If you are new to my channel, I cannot stress this enough. You really do, to gain the most from this work that I'm putting out, you need to go back and watch the episodes in order from episode 1. A lot of thought has been given to the way that I present these, and they build on each other. So episode 1 is the foundation of, I asked the question, what is consciousness? Episode 2, I went into the subconscious and how we operate. All these early videos are on the knowledge of self, which is the microcosm. Eventually I'm going to be moving to natural law and the laws of the universe, which is what they call the macrocosm. Okay, so that being said, obviously I'm going to also put all the EFT videos together in one playlist, so you can just watch all the EFT together if you want to get all the healing mode, get familiar with EFT and then start to use it in your own life. It's fantastic for shadow work and dealing with our deepest demons. And as you know, if you watch my videos regularly again, I think that's really, really vital to address the shadow, because we all carry a shadow, but we need to address it and work with it and integrate it into our lives. That's how you heal it. Okay, episode 5 is the one you want to look at if you just want the EFT videos. But as I say, I'll put them in a playlist. That being said, this is part 2 of the EFT series, and I'm going to talk about trauma. Now, I can't stress this enough with EFT. To get the maximum benefit from doing EFT, you must address specific events. Now, when we're talking about specific events, we're talking about things that have happened to us that have left an energetic or emotional scar. When we're working with trauma, what we want to do is we want to assess how we're feeling about it now. We don't look back on these things, say like something happened to me when I was 7 years old and I've still got intensity, or I've still got an effect from it. I want to deal with the effect in the here and now. But that's because some of our healing does happen naturally. So something that happened to me when I was 7, let's just say I was in a car accident when I was 7 years old and I was still carrying trauma from that. Some of it would have already been processed, and my SUD scale, my unit of distress scale, at the time would probably have been a 10, but as I think about it now, it's still causing me some issues. Let's just say, this is all hypothetical by the way, and it's sitting at a 5. So I want to make that clear. You're working with a traumatic event from the past, but you're working with it how it affects you now, because some of it might have already been dealt with on a certain level. Okay, that being said, let's move forward. This I only found this recently, but I just want to flag this up. And yes, I am going to get on to talk about a technique in a minute, but this is something I found just the other day, and this because there's loads of science out there about EFT, and it's important to look into it, because they're proving now. There's so much science to back up how it works and why it works. Okay, so this is brain scan changes, during 4 weeks of treatment for someone who's obviously got generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm assuming that that person is quite an anxious individual, And on the left there, top left, number 1, is an ideal profile. Now, what they're measuring is brain frequencies, which is the alpha, beta, and theta waves. And now, I spoke about that in episode 2, I believe. So if you want to know more about that, go back to that. But this person on the right, their general anxiety disorder, before treatment, you can see those red and pink areas. And if you look down the bottom at the key, that means they're highly dysfunctional or moderately dysfunctional. And there's a little bit of blue in the back there. So they assessed this person's brain and they've colour coded it. After 4 tapping sessions, you can see there on the bottom left, the brain is literally starting to change. You know, the way the brain is processing, the pathways, everything is starting to become more blue. As you go to the next image, image 4, after 8 tapping sessions, there's I don't think there's any red there. The image isn't great, but we'll go with it. It's the only image I could find. The image, you can see that there's a small pink area now, and we've got lots more blue, which is your turquoise, and your blue, which is slightly dysfunctional or normal. Deep blue is obviously normal. And then, you know, number 5, that says it all. After 12 sessions of EFT, the brain pattern is back to mostly deep blue. Well, it's half and half, I would say. So deep blue, which is normal wave, and turquoise, which is slightly dysfunctional. Okay, so that's probably there's still a bit of work to do there, but that's incredible. To go from that first before treatment, where there's red and pinks, they're predominantly dominating that brain, which means they're highly and moderately dysfunctional. So that person's in a lot of trouble. You know, they're probably full of anxiety. And look at that, after 12 sessions. Yeah, there you go. I just wanted to flag that up before I get onto the technique, because I think that's amazing. And do look into the science. You know, you haven't got to look far to find the science of EFT. Okay, I'm going to talk you through the technique that I use within EFT that addresses trauma. It's called the movie techniques. I think it's fundamental skill if you're a practitioner. Everyone who's a practitioner uses this technique because it's so powerful. So you think of your traumatic event that happened to you as a movie. Okay, hypothetically, you'd use a bit of an imagination here. In your movie, you will relive a traumatic event as if viewing it as a movie. Okay, as I said with EFT, I've already explained, you have to expose the darkness. There is an exposure aspect to EFT, but we're using the meridians to calm the brain down. We are exposing ourselves to it, but we're clearing it. Okay, so yeah, it's painful, but we're going to clear it. The movie or memory will have one or many crescendos. The crescendo is a spike in distress and the most traumatic part of the memory. Most memories have one bit that's really high in intensity. Some have two or three. You have these spikes of real strong distress. However, it is still important to tap on each part of the memory where distress or discomfort is felt. Now, what I do with people, if they're coming for a session with me and they're bringing a trauma, and I use this technique, and what I do is you take it in small steps, but I make sure they're safe at all time. I do not want the client to move straight into the crescendo. So it's about breaking it down, going very slowly, and making sure you're emotionally safe at each step. You can get a thing called an abreaction sometimes. An abreaction is where you spike so high you just go through the roof with anxiety. If that ever happens when you're using this technique, if you ever get that happen to you and it's just too much, stop. And what you do is you stop and you just tap on the collarbone point and just breathe. You stop saying things, you stop processing memory, you just tap continuously on the collarbone point and do some deep breathing. Okay, that being said, I'll show you how it works, right? So the first step, I always get the clients to give the movie a name. I've used an example there, the hurtful comment. You can call it anything you want. Just call it the trauma if you want. It doesn't really matter. So clients often will think that's a bit bizarre, and it is a bit bizarre, but it's done for a good purpose. So I want them to encapsulate that traumatic memory. Give it a name. Give it a label. Next thing, what I do is I get the client to imagine the movie as if it's a DVD. Or a video, if you like, if you're a bit from the older generations. But so what I do is, I haven't got a DVD, by the way, it's not physical, this is all imagination work. I get them to imagine the DVD is in my hand and I place it in front of their eyes. Now what I say is, we're not going into the memory yet, we're just looking at the DVD. We know, I'll say to the client, we know that your traumatic event, say called the hurtful comment, is on this DVD. But before we play it, how high is your intensity? And that's where you use your SUD rating, the scales there on the left. So I'll say to the client, how intense are you now looking at that DVD in front of your face? And they might say, oh, a 7, let's just say hypothetically. Then you start tapping. So you're not even going into the memory at this point, you're just looking at it from afar, okay? So, as I've put there, we then do a round of tapping just on the DVD. Even though I have this DVD called The Hurtful Comment, I deeply and completely accept myself. Obviously, if you want to know how to tap properly, go back to my first video on it. I will just show you again the tapping points here. So the setup statement would be, on the karate chop point, even though I have this DVD, this hurtful memory called The Hurtful Comment, I deeply and completely accept myself. Tapping 3 times on the karate chop on the setup, and then you would just tap through the points. Doesn't matter which side of the body. So from eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbone point, under the arm, and then finishing with the top of the head. And obviously, you know, if you watch my first video, you don't need to say the whole setup statement again. You just say this DVD, this hurtful comment, this DVD called this hurtful comment, this blah blah blah, as you go through to each point. Next step. By the way, you do that, and then I would say to the client, how are you feeling now after a few rounds of tapping? And what I want them to do is get the intensity down to as low as it can get, so they are safe to then move into the memory. Okay, so if for instance, let's go back. If for instance, just looking at the DVD, it's a 10. Okay, I'd want that intensity down to, for me personally, if it was me working on something, I'd want my intensity down to about a 4 before I felt safe moving forward. But obviously that's different for everyone else. You know, some people can say, oh, I'm at a 5, but I'm safe to move forward. Ideally, just me being me, I like it to be below a 5. Ideally, what you want to do is get to a 0, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, when the client or you are feeling safe to do so, the next step is to go into the memory. Now, what I do with clients is I get them to talk to me, and as soon as I notice they're feeling any intensity, or I tell them, as soon as you feel any intensity, I get them to stop. I usually put my hand up and say, just stop there. Okay? Because you're doing it in slow stages. Say like they say, oh, say this memory, you know, hypothetically that I said was this hurtful comment, and it was a father figure that had caused this hurtful comment, that had caused all this distress. You know, it might be at this part of the story, he just comes into the room. I remember him coming into the room, and you can see that the client's getting a bit intense. So I'd say, right, stop. How intense are you with your dad coming into the room? And they might say, oh, that's a 7, and just repeat. So, you know, you tap on the karate chop and you say, even though he's coming into the room, I just want to feel better, or whatever. Repeat the setup statement 3 times, go through the points. He's coming into the room, he's coming into the room. Take it like that. And then, so as I've said, each time you feel intensity, stop, give it an SUD rating between 0 and 10, how intense it is. Then do tap in on it until it is at a 0 or low enough for you to feel safe to move on. Okay? So you see what we're doing now, we're taking it in very, very small stages. We are addressing each part of the memory, but we're doing it very slowly. So we've gone from just looking at the memory as a DVD to now we're in the memory, we're playing the DVD, and the first part that's causing intensity we're now tapping on. Once that's low enough, you move more into the memory. This bit's vital. Eventually in your movie or memory, you will reach the crescendo moment. This is the most distressing part of the memory. Simply repeat the tapping process, rate the intensity, tap on it until it is a 0 or low enough that you feel comfortable. Okay, and I've said, like I said, you've got to be safe doing this work, because I know some people, you know, I've worked with some people that have carried some really, really distressing memories. So we take it very, very slowly. And because you want the person to feel safe, you want to feel safe while doing this work. And like I say, if you spike too high and you feel unsafe doing this at all, what I would do is just tap on the collarbone point. Just tap repeatedly on the collarbone point. Don't stop processing, stop thinking, clear your mind, take deep breaths until you are safe. Okay? And obviously, you know, I'm putting this info out there for free, because you can do this work on your own. But obviously, if you're doing something really distressing, sometimes it is good to have a practitioner. And, you know, my business page, I'll put a link on it at the bottom. But yeah, you know, some people it's too much. Some people, everyone's different. I think that's what it's about. Everyone's different, and some people, their memory might be too distressing to even think about even starting because they might feel unsafe doing it on their own, and that's fine. You know, seek a practitioner. I've put at the bottom there, it's good to have a drink of water. There's a link between doing energy work and being thirsty. Sometimes when doing EFT a lot, it can make you really thirsty because it's all to do with the energy you're shifting. Okay, like I said, take it slow and be gentle on yourself. So once you reach the crescendo, try and get that down. And it don't matter how many times it takes, and don't, the other thing I'd say to people as well, don't get dissuaded. Say like your crescendo moment is a 10, crescendos are often a 9 or a 10. You know, if you just get it down, you do 2 rounds of tapping, let's just say, and it gets down to an 8. Don't think, oh, it's still at an 8, it's still really intense. Any shift downwards means something's releasing. Even if it's just a 0.5 of a shift, something's releasing, you know. Okay, when you have managed to get each part of the memory at a 0, so you'll know when your memory's finished, or low enough that you are comfortable, it is good to recheck each point. Sometimes once the crescendo is a 0, the rest of the memory automatically drops. That's quite interesting. Often when not always, but often if I'm working with someone, and I worked with someone in my family once, and their crescendo moment, once the crescendo was down, I said, right, can we just rewind the DVD or skip backwards and just check those first points that you spoke about. And I write things down constantly when I'm doing EFT work to go back to those points, because I need to remember each point, and B, I need to make sure that the energy's releasing. So say something was a 9 and now it's a 4, I need to see that on paper so I know I've got a roadmap. Okay, so often once the crescendo's gone, the other points will collapse. It's quite amazing. And then the final thing I get to do, once everything's at a 0, and I can't stress this enough, once you think the whole memory's at a 0 and you've released it, and you'll be feeling amazing at this point, probably shattered as well, because EFT is really tiring, I get the client to close their eyes and talk me through the movie again. And if it's all at a 0 again, job done. We have cleared that energy from that person's system, which is so healing. It brings me such joy when I'm working with someone and I see this happen. It's just brilliant. I get such a buzz off of it. There's a thing called the personal peace procedure, and you know, I've spoke a lot about contemplation before in these videos, and this is a lovely thing to do. You know, sit quietly in contemplation and review your earliest memory that causes you distress. Do a life review. Sit down, think back to when you were a baby, and when doing this, remember we are rating the distress it causes us now. Yeah, I spoke about that at the beginning. So every time you think of a memory that causes distress, write it in a journal. Get a journal, like in that picture, and write down, I don't know, say you were 4 years old and you remember, I don't know, tripping and falling and cutting your knee open. And when you think about that, you think, oh, that's still a 6. Write that down. Write, tripped and fell, split knees open, 4 years old, and then next to it, give it a rating of, what did I say, 6, 4, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Write it down. Go through your whole life. Continue doing this as a life review of any memories that cause you distress in the here and now when you recall them. Write them all down in a journal. Give them all an intensity rating, how intense, and that will give you a roadmap of all the negative energy through events in your life that you are still carrying. And, some people will say, blimey, I can't. 2 things can happen. They can think, blimey, I'm overwhelmed. I can't believe how many of these things I'm carrying around. But to me, that's a roadmap. That gives you insight of how you can heal, how you can do shadow work, using energy psychology to clear these things up. Then you won't be taking things out on other people. You won't be, you won't be in that dark frame of mind. You'll feel so much lighter in yourself. And And also, the thing I want to point out as well is you don't always necessarily have to clear them all. And this sounds weird, but I think it's the next slide. Let's have a look. No, yeah. Let's look at this, right. So this is such a brilliant example of how we form core beliefs or negative beliefs about ourselves, right? So tabletops and table legs, it's called. This is from Dr. Peter Stapleton, and she's amazing. She's doing so much, putting so much science out there now that backs up everything that we know about EFT. Okay, so this person's got a core belief of I am not good enough and I will never be good enough. So that's the table part of the memory, okay? What you then get is these table legs underneath. What they are is they're the specific events that are holding that table in place, okay? So let's look at some of them. That time when I was 15 years old and I didn't get a rose at school for Valentine's Day. So that event happened when they were 15, and that made them think, "Oh, I'm not good enough." Can you see how it happens? And then look at the other table leg. That time when I was 7 years old and I didn't get the Star of the Day award in class. They're all knockbacks. Next one, when Dad used to yell at me, "What's wrong with you?" when I made a mistake. Then, when Mum laughed at me during the dance recital because I couldn't get it. That time my boss said I wasn't up to scratch in my performance review and had room for improvement. When I didn't have the same brand shoes as everyone because we couldn't afford it. When Mum used to rip up my homework because it wasn't good enough. That time when I was 22 years old when I got overlooked for the promotion at work. When the year 10 coordinator said I couldn't study music because I hadn't done it as a prerequisite. All those events have caused that one belief. Now that one belief can be collapsed. And how you collapse it is you tap on those specific legs or events. And you don't always have to tap on all of them because there's a lot there, right? The ones that are most intense, what I'd do, once you got your journal, the ones that are the most intense, tap on those first. Get rid of the high ones first. So say like in that, let's look at this as an overview. Say like that one when she was 7 years old and she didn't get the Star of the Day award in class, right? Say that one was really intense, and the one where she was 22 and she got overlooked for work at her promotion. What you'll find is by working on those two, the intensities for the others will come down because they're all linked to the same limiting belief. So that's how it works, and that's why I say, this work is a form of self-love. It's self-love, it's growth, and it's so quick and powerful. Like some of these things, if you went to traditional counselling, and I'm not, please don't take me wrong, traditional counselling can be fantastic, but when you add energy psychology, you just take off. You destroy these negative bits and pieces of yourself that are holding you back, and you go on to be whole. And what a beautiful gift that is. What a wonderful thing, So you can probably hear it in my voice. I get very passionate about EFT, but I'm going to continue doing this series. I'm going to keep going back to EFT because there's more I want to explain. But I hope that this has given you knowledge to start. Perhaps knocking out some trauma that you carry in. Think about it. Be reflective. Do the shadow work. Add energy psychology to it, EFT, you'll be clearing up. You're clearing up all this darkness that's holding you back, and that is the highest form of self-love. Take care, guys. See you in the next one.